A common criticism of the skill tree is that it uses coins to buy all of the skills that you see here. Now, when the skill tree was first leaked, it showed some skill points that you could use to buy all of these skills. However, back then, it wasn't called the skill tree, it was just called the skill system. Tinker your player and base stats with combinations to directly affect your experience. This system will replace the old health per level system. So yes, back in August 31st, 2023, Below Natural was looking into ways to replacing the health per level system, which is 5 levels per 2 health. Furthermore, Below Natural would say that stats and skills are not finalized in this screenshot, but we can see how things have evolved from this. So firstly, base health. Your base max health will be increased by 60% HP at the beginning of the game. Value will be average between teammates in multiplayer. This is not actually the case. This skill would actually be the Fortify skill that we get now. Furthermore, the party system that this would have used, in groups, the highest HP is used as opposed to the average between the players in your group. So in this case, only one person needs to have the maximum Fortify to have 400 health, whereas previously it would have been average. So for example, I only have 60, I only have 10 levels. If someone else were to have 0 levels, they would have averaged out to basically, effectively, a 5 purchase. To basically 30 health, which I think you agree would cause many arguments. So perhaps this is better that this was changed over to the highest HP that someone has bought. And also, this skill implies that there's going to be a maximum of 100% HP, meaning that you can't get over 200 health, because the default health in Tower Defense Simulator is 100. With the new Fortify skill, you can get up to 300 more health than the base health of 100, meaning that you can have up to 400 health when the game mode allows for it. So for example, in Fallen mode and in multi-mode, it doesn't allow for that. But in easy mode, casual mode, and intermediate mode, it does allow for it. So you can have up to 400 health in that game mode. Plus, you can have overheal, which you can heal your base by more than the maximum health that you can have. This can go up to 100. So therefore, meaning that in these game modes, you can have up to 500 health. People have criticized the developers for removing the health per level system. However, the replacement for it, at least in this screenshot, wouldn't have been as powerful as the skill that we see in Tower Defense Simulator now. So actually, this is an example of where skills are actually more powerful than originally planned. Because one criticism of people is that these skills aren't as powerful as they should be, and surely the developers had plans for these skills to be much more powerful. However, the evidence that we see right here doesn't suggest that whatsoever. Then we also get a leak for the base shield. Now, the icon implies something similar to Fortify. However, the Fortify upgrade looks very similar to the base health upgrade, so I don't think it is. What I think base shield could be is either reducing the amount of health that an enemy when entering your base does. So for example, if you have a base shield of 100%, it probably would reduce the amount of health or the amount of damage that an enemy does to your base by 2 times. Meaning that if a health with 10 health goes into your base, it only damages it 5 base health. So that's what I mean by base shield. However, it could also be something similar to the base shield that's seen in Outpost 32. Here, the base health was 100, but because of these 3 shields here, it actually increased to 400. Now, what the base shield could do is it gives you 100 more health, base health, but you are unable to regenerate this health, unlike the base health, which you could regenerate through the medic, and the next upgrade for the skill tree at least, or the skill path, Regeneration. Now, based on this, Regeneration was renamed to Bandages, where it regenerates 10 health at the start of every wave. Based on the leaks here, it looks percentage based, at least in terms of base health, so maybe Regeneration would be something similar to that, so it increases by 1 health or 2% of health from level 1 to level 10. And that's the case because base health here, it says it's level 6 and it says 60% complete. So from this skill path, it looks like each upgrade or each skill has 10 levels that you can buy. And similar to the skill tree here, where you need 10 levels to upgrade the next paths, here it looks like you may need about 50% to upgrade to the next path. Because here, Regeneration is locked off. However, base shield isn't, even though base health is not fully upgraded. So I would say it is about 50% of the previous skill before you could upgrade it, at least in terms of what was first leaked. Next, we have economy called War Bonds and Capital Funds. Now, there's not much leaks for this other than the cash symbol, but based on what we did get, I think War Bonds is something similar to Stonks, where wave rewards are increased by 5% because bonds are something that you can buy with little interest later on down the line. And bigger budget probably is the replacement for Capital Funds because it is an initial investment, Capital Funds. And bigger budget increases starting cash by whatever percentage that you bought it by, 1% each time. Now, because they're not selected here, we don't know how far or how OP that these were going to be. Probably something similar to actually what we got now. And in fact, it might be something smaller, given the fact that Fortify and Bandages, well, Fortify at least, seems to be less powerful in the first screenshot seen here. However, the more important thing here is that there is a separate currency that you use to buy these skills. Here, it's called skill points. Below Natural would actually mention this. You will get skill points every time you level up. It's currently undetermined how many points you'll get. However, I think Below Natural had the same issue with health per level with this new system. If you were to get a number of skill points per level, say 1, it'll be extremely easy for someone to either aft on their keyboard and just grind out levels over and over again. Or, for higher levels, like myself, I'm level 674, it'll be very easy for me to buy the entire skill tree with no thought whatsoever. And because skill points are a currency unique to the skill tree, or the skill pass as it were back in the day, it would mean that there would be a certain hard cap to those skills and a level to aim for. However, when it comes to the current system with coins and skills, firstly, the developers are better to monetize this because it's based on coins and you can buy coins. You can't buy EXP and you can't buy levels in Tower Defense Simulator. But secondly, coins have a usage in Tower Defense Simulator that is more than just one currency, the skill points. Coins are used to buy towers, they're used to buy skins, they're used to buy emotes, they're used to buy stickers. Well, not stickers yet nowadays, but they can buy consumables through the consumable crates, of course. But the developers probably realized, and in fact I know they did, they checked everyone's balances in Tower Defense Simulator in terms of their coins and realized that most people had over 1 million coins. And in fact, I'm willing to bet that most players, at least if you consider everyone, excluding absolutely no one, they have like 1.5 million coins as the average. At least towards the higher ends of players, excluding those like under level 50. However, what that fails to account for is bots accounts and macro accounts. Yeah, those players probably have over 2 million coins and definitely skew up the average for a load of people. From this skill point system, we can see that you can use them to upgrade the skills, and you can see the symbol for them is a star. However, additionally, there's also another system here called resets left. Now, at the time of recording this video, resets have not been added to the skill system. However, it does appear to be the case that here, you are actually able to reset your skill tree or skill paths. However, unlike skill points, which Below Natural clarified that you'd get them as you level up, there's no way, at least I can see, of them implementing resets into the skill tree. At least from a free standpoint. There is precedent for this, however, it costs Robux. So if you go to Quest, and you can see here, the refill, it uses the same symbol as it does for the resets here. Yes, you're able to reset or refill your weekly and your daily quests whenever you finish it, or even right now. However, this does imply that to reset your skill tree, it looks like you would have to buy resets. Possibly with Robux, in the egalitarian field, maybe through coins or through gems at max. But given the precedent, I think it would be with Robux. But why would there be a system for this that's similar to tickets? Well, actually, I think there could be something called refill tickets, whereby you'll be able to buy 3 of them through Robux, or you'll be able to earn refill tickets at the end of matches in Tower Defense Simulator, whereby you are able to reset your skill tree and probably get all your remaining points back. Now, in the current system, or the system that's about to be implemented for Tower Defense Simulator for resetting your skill tree, there is going to be an upfront cost depending on how many skills that you bought on the skill tree, plus a small tax that they'll impose on the players. Here, it implies that it's totally free and you'll get it, all of it, all your skill points back. And by totally free, I mean, once you have a reset ticket, you'll be able to reset your skill tree all the way back to 0 with no tax whatsoever. And looking at this system, you'll be implored to think that why didn't developers use this system as opposed to the coins for the skill tree? However, in the past, many people have criticized developers for not using coins when it comes to new releases. So, for example, when it comes to the Phantom Crate, when that was released, many people criticized the developers for not using coins to purchase this crate. Additionally, another thing that I can think of is for the Engineer Tower. When the Engineer Tower was first added to the game, many people said that the developers should have made this a coins tower and not a gem tower, even though the Engineer Tower was leaked as a hardcore tower back in the day, and therefore meaning it implied that it would have costed gems anyways. So had the developers released the skill tree as for skill points, many people, if they didn't have enough skill points, probably would have said to developers, why don't you make it for coins? Why do I have to get another currency to get another skill or another system in Tower Defense Simulator? However, I assume for people like me who have 674 levels, it would not be too much of an issue given the fact that I would have likely grinded out the entire thing in the first place. Which I think is probably another reason why developers went for coins for the skill tree. Not everybody had 1.6 million coins, and I know it's going to get reduced, but even then, that is going to be quite a feat to get, and especially because I haven't gone to waste my coins on like consumable crates. A lot of people have, meaning that they're going to play the game quite a fair bit to get all of the skill tree maxed. Had it be for skill points, a lot of people, which I assume like over level 400 or level 500, they would have already completed the game without playing the game at all, which is not productive for the developers whatsoever.